The Miami Dolphins offseason is still going on. And before training camp, they have a to-do list to get done. And on today's show, we're going to look at the 3-step list Miami has to do, I would say, before training camp. I am Nic Rohloff. This is Dolphins Today. The number one thing that has to be done, they have to trade Jalen Ramsey. And by the way, just a quick little update. This list comes from both me and Bleacher Report. So both of us believe that the number one thing Miami has to do is trade Jalen Ramsey. It just needs to be handled. You need to have more clarity going into training camp. And when I say more clarity, it's not like I need more clarity in the cornerback room. We know where things ultimately stand there. But I'm talking more financial flexibility. Because if you trade Jalen Ramsey, you're able to free up a significant chunk of change that could be used to help extend Jonnu Smith or sign another free agent, which is why I think it would be smarter to trade Jalen Ramsey sooner rather than later. But I also understand if no packages are coming in that you like and you think you're getting robbed blind, then you don't want to do it and you want to hold off. Make sure you do follow me over on X/Twitter at Nic_Rohloff. We're on the road to 1,900 followers. We're 52 away, so go give me a follow. It's important that you go, guys, follow me. Why is that? Well, it's because that when Ramsey gets traded, well, we'll have the news over on Twitter before we go live on YouTube and break it down. So go follow me if you want to be up to date on the latest around the Miami Dolphins. All right, I kind of just alluded to it just a second ago, but trading Jalen Ramsey frees up $9.9 million in cap space. That gives you so much flexibility. Right now, you have $23.5 million in cap space. Did I say 23 or 13? Did I think I said 13? If I didn't say 13, that's what they actually have. But I was thinking they would have $23.4 million in cap space once they trade Jalen Ramsey. Now, when it comes to a Jalen Ramsey trade, one will not happen until early July. Why is that? Well, most front offices and coaching staffs go on a little hiatus after minicamp. Minicamps happen in the first 2.5 weeks of June. Those end, and then next thing you know, they take a 3-week break, and then a week or two before training camp is when people get back into the building and start trying to get things rolling here. Now, maybe the Dolphins ultimately wait for a team to potentially get desperate for Jalen Ramsey with them having an injury at corner in training camp or the preseason. But either way, I don't see a trade happening for Jalen until I'd say July 7th and more. That's kind of where I think it could be heading. Now, we've talked about these 4 teams a lot in terms of these being Jalen Ramsey destinations. The Los Angeles Rams have been the most linked team. The Steelers, according to Slim Rick, have talked about a potential trade for Jalen Ramsey. The Commanders and Falcons have been lurking as well. I'd probably also add the Green Bay Packers to this list once they release Jair Alexander. They are in desperate need of another corner as well. So these 4 teams plus the Green Bay Packers, I think, are the teams most likely to trade for Jalen Ramsey. But I don't see one happening for probably 3 to 4 weeks before we get to training camp. Predict it for me. Call your shot. What team trades for Jalen Ramsey? I'm still going to rock with the Los Angeles Rams. They've been the most linked team. I think they're ultimately going to get it done. I think I would have the Green Bay Packers as my number 2 option. They desperately need a corner, and they're in win-now mode. All right, number 2 on the Dolphins' to-do list. It's extending Jonnu Smith. So these 2 players, Ramsey and Jonnu, are the 2 players that are linked to potential trades this offseason for Miami at this point. I want to keep Jonnu, but so does almost every other fan. And it feels like most of the players and coaching staff, especially on the offensive end, also wants to keep Jonnu Smith. I mean, he had just a fantastic year a season ago, right? 88 catches, 884 yards, 8 touchdowns. This season for Jonnu was the best season for a Dolphins tight end in history. In history. I mean, it's crazy that he set single-season records for receptions, yards, and touchdowns for a Dolphins tight end. It's actually hard to fathom. But the reason why I think that they need to extend him, and ultimately will, I do predict one to happen, is because the amount of love that is shown to Jonnu from the coaching staff and his QB1, Tua Tagovailoa. When asked about if he wants to keep Jonnu, he said, 100%. That's my guy. Jonnu has done really good for us, so you don't have anything bad to say about him. And I mean, I love him as a person, too. I think all our guys that do what they need to do should get paid. It just, to me, makes absolutely no sense to trade Jonnu Smith. It doesn't. Why would you trade Jonnu Smith? Tua Tagovailoa wants him here. Mike McDaniel wants him here. Jonnu Smith wants to stay here. Drew Rosenhaus said that he expects a resolution for Jonnu Smith before Dolphins training camp in a month. An extension would not break the bank for you. You increase his base salary by about $2 million this season, give him a little bit more guaranteed money, and then add one more year to his deal because he is going to be turning 31 soon. So only one more year on his contract, $7 million base, give him a guarantee of about 3.5, $8 million cap hit in 2026. Keeping Jonnu Smith around makes a lot of sense. I think that contract makes a lot of sense. Coaching staff wants him. Tua wants him. Jonnu wants to be here. Keep Jonnu in Miami. And when Jonnu Smith's kind of resolution is kind of confirmed, we will have you covered with a video. So hit that sub button and join the channel so you don't miss any piece of news around the Miami Dolphins. I mentioned what a contract could look like. I briefly talked about it. Let's look at it more in depth. This is what Jonnu's current contract is. He's got a base of $3.49 million per game bonus on over the cap, according to them, $500K. He's got a cap hit of $4.64 million this year with no guaranteed money. So maybe that's what he wants. He wants more guaranteed money. But as I just kind of mentioned briefly a second ago, I would bump Jonnu Smith up $2 million in base for 2025 and add one more year to his deal because I don't think it would hurt giving him one more year. Would I give him 2 more years? No. 1? Yeah, I'm cool with that. So this is what I mentioned just a second ago, right? You up his base by $2 million. Cap hit increases by about $2 million. You give him $7.5 million base contract in 2026. That comes out to a cap hit of $8 million in 2026. Jonnu will be 31. He's not going to get much better than that, I think, on the open market because he might be a Mike McDaniel merchant in terms of only working in that scheme. I just think it makes a lot of sense for Jonnu to accept that contract and Miami to give him that contract. It's not a lot of money for a player that's giving you that production that Jonnu gave you last season at the tight end spot. So, to me, I think that's Dolphins to-do list number 2, and I think they do get it done before training camp. Number 3 on the to-do list, add corner help. So you trade Jalen Ramsey, and then you extend Jonnu Smith, and then you finally go out and find that veteran corner on the free agent market before you get to training camp. And before we talk about who that could be, make sure you get in and take advantage of this deal. $40 off this Miami Dolphins white hoodie when you go to chatsports.com/Dolphins hoodie. Links in the description and comments of today's show. Sizes are running out, so take advantage today. Get yours before they're out of stock. One more time, $40 off, chatsports.com/Dolphins hoodie. All right, let's move over to the cornerback spot. Let's start by looking at the depth chart that Miami currently has at their disposal. It's not the prettiest in the world. We know that. Storm Duck and Cam Smith are your 2 outside corners projected right now. Kader Kohu's your nickel. You drafted Jason Marshall Jr. in the 5th, and you have Ethan Bonner and Artie Burns kind of fighting for a roster spot, as well as Isaiah Johnson and others. Now, the Dolphins are going to sign a corner in free agency. Will it be 1? Will it be 2? I'm not sure. I think I would prefer 2 if we're going to be honest, but they're definitely signing 1. We know they have held interest in Rasul Douglas and Asante Samuel Jr. Other top cornerbacks that are available include Jair Alexander, Stephon Gilmore, and Mike Hilton. I would be fine with any of these if we're going to be quite frank. Breaking news, Dolphins signed one of these 5 guys. We're clapping. We're making a video. We're going to be quite excited about it. I do prefer Alexander and Asante Samuel Jr. the most because of their pedigree, their youth compared to the other 3, and their level of play at this point. I do think Jair Alexander is pretty unlikely, though, for Miami. As much as I would love to sign Jair, I think Alexander is going to do one of 2 things. He is going to prioritize being a starter on a contending level team, and then number 2, he is going to prioritize making a nice chunk of change because that is what he wanted from the Green Bay Packers as well in order for him to stay a member of that organization. Can Miami give him the biggest contract? I say no. Are they in the best spot to contend for an NFL championship? I also say no. So that is why I believe that Jair Alexander would ultimately, when gets into negotiations, sign with another team that isn't Miami, which would force the Dolphins to have to pivot to a different free agent. When speaking on some of these other different free agents, a couple of the updates. Asante Samuel Jr., he won't sign until mid-July. He's having a checkup on his neck surgery in early July that he had back in April. Once he gets medically cleared from doctors after that checkup, he will then start negotiating, go take medicals with NFL teams, and potentially sign. And we know Rasul Douglas remains in contact with Miami. Right after the NFL draft, Douglas visited Dolphins headquarters, had a meeting, was offered a contract from Miami, but he declined. Douglas looking for a little bit more money from the Dolphins. Will that money come from a different team? I'm not sure. Will Miami up their offer? Probably not. But if Douglas doesn't get a better contract out there, well, he might just end up signing with the Miami Dolphins. So take Jair Alexander out of it. What corner do you want? You can only choose one corner to sign in free agency. Type AS for Asante Samuel Jr., type RD for Rasul Douglas. Which corner do you think Miami ultimately signs? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section. Truth is, I want both. I've been very open about this all offseason long, ever since the draft, where Miami didn't really significantly address the cornerback position. Once you trade Jalen Ramsey, you're going to have $23 million in cap space. That's more than enough room to sign Asante Samuel Jr. to like a 1-year, $6 million deal, and Rasul Douglas to like a 1-year, $4 million deal. You get both those corners on 1-year deals worth up $10 million. That, to me, makes a lot of sense. Douglas is getting a 1-year cheap contract. Asante Samuel Jr., due to his injury scare at that next spot, he is going to get a relatively cheaper contract, likely on 1 year. You do that for both those guys. You take high upside swings for cheap money, and you never know. Pans out for you. You have a good secondary, and you could have a top 10 defense in the National Football League with how good your front seven projects to be. I want both. Why not give me both? Okay, make sure you do follow me over on Twitter as this show has concluded. At Nic_Rohloff is that handle. Posting more content on the Dolphins outside of videos over on social media. And if the Dolphins sign a player, trade a player, extend a player, it don't matter. We'll have the news over there first before making content here on YouTube. So if you want 365, 24/7 coverage on the Fins, you know where to find me, right down there.